Well, exclusive news story now from the Daily Telegraph. New data has revealed that there are still more than 1 million people receiving either job seeker or youth allowance welfare payments, the same number as when Labor was sworn into government, despite overhauling the jobs program. This is costing taxpayers $16 billion a year. I'm joined now by the Daily Telegraph's James Willis. James, great to see you. So tell us about this story you've just broken over on the Daily Telly.
Thanks for having me on your show, Sharri. I think this figure that you just quoted is important to clarify so people understand exactly how bad this problem is. We're not talking about people that are on a disability pension, veterans, people that are on an age pension. This is 1 million Aussies who have been declared capable of working at least a little bit, about 500,000 of them for at least 30 hours a week. And yet in 2 years of government, with Tony Burke as the employment minister, Labor has failed to move the dial on this figure, and we still have 1 million Australians on the job seeker and youth allowance program. Now, a lot of these people, I think 300,000 have been on the program for at least 2 years, if not 5 years, if not 10 years for about 70,000. And we have to start asking, when Labor continues to say we've created hundreds of thousands of jobs, unemployment's at record lows, you've got this massive 1 million elephant in the room, which is people that should be working that aren't, and it starts to shine a pretty big light on the number of migrants that we've brought in over the last 2 years, more than 1 million people who all can't go immediately on unemployment benefits, need to have a job. So that's taken jobs in that regard. But what is Labor doing to fix this problem that Tony Burke said was on the right track in June 2022?
Well, Tony Burke, as you said, the employment minister, what did he have to say for himself today when you asked him about this problem?
Well, it's the same lines that we hear from Labor over and over again. They've created 820,000 jobs, unemployment's at almost record levels, and they've managed to get things moving, and they've had new things in the budget to give incentives to employers to get people into work. But the reality is, in June 2022, Tony Burke said it was a clean slate. He was going to wipe all the penalty points from welfare recipients if they hadn't met their mutual obligations. He was going to get people job ready. And 2 years on, we still have 1 million people out of work completely. I would note as well, Sharri, that there are large numbers of these people on job seeker and youth allowance that are on in Mr Burke's backyard in Watson, in Ed Husick's electorate of Chifley, in Jason Clare's electorate of Blaxland, and also McMahon for Chris Bowen. That's about 30,000 between them. So this is a problem that senior Labor ministers should be deeply concerned by, and yet we have not moved the dial on the number of unemployed Australians. And it's not a cheap problem, as you say, it's a $16 billion problem.
Yeah, massive, $16 billion a year. Now let's have a look at News Poll today. It showed that despite the commitments to cost of living relief, 29% of voters thought they'd be worse off after this new Labor budget. This is compared to 27% who thought they'd be better off. Meantime, 39% thought that the new budget would actually make inflation worse. Now, James, this will be a disappointing result for Albanese and Chalmers. You know, they say this had nothing to do with politics, but of course, you know, it is an economic document, but it's also a political one, and they were certainly hoping that the billions of dollars spent on cost of living relief would put them in good standing ahead of the next election.
Well, it all goes back, Sharri, to the broken promise, one of the greatest broken promises in recent memories that we heard before the last election, that Labor would reduce people's power bills by $275. And they kept saying along the way, oh no, don't worry, that doesn't start until 2025. Well, we're now at that point where that money should be coming off people's power bills. As we know, whether you're a small business, whether you're a family, energy bills are absolutely crippling people. So a $300 supplement to everyone, from the richest Australian down, is their way of saying, look, we got this wrong, but here's a little bit of bill relief anyway. As we know, for the majority of people, you'll barely even feel this off your quarterly bill. Bills are going in the wrong direction. This is the biggest story and the most common thing you hear from small businesses right across Australia. Their energy bills are through the roof. They can't pay their gas. They've gas is a massive issue that hasn't even been looked at properly in this budget.
Good
Labor's
point.
taken that off the agenda because they've, had to do deals with Greens and the Independents to keep things going. And it's the cost of inflation. It's the cost of wages. Small businesses are going broke. We've had some of the best restaurants in Sydney that have gone broke over the last few weeks and can't remain open because they simply cannot afford the costs of doing business. It's terrible. It's probably, in fairness to Labor, there's a fair sting in the tail from the coronavirus, as we know, but the Prime Minister's the one in power, and ultimately when voters go to the polls, he's going to be the one that they judge when they decide whether he can get another term or not.
Well, they might not have blamed him, but he promised that he'd be able to make life more affordable. It was one of his key election pledges ahead of the 2022 election.